Hi everyone, it's Samantha Lux. Welcome back to my channel. So it's day one of Trump's presidency and he's already signed an executive order defining trans people out of existence. Well, he's trying to, but it's fine. We're gonna be fine. But yes, he did follow along with his campaign promises to eradicate the transgender craziness, has signed an executive order that we'll be talking about today, and even addressed it in his inaugural acceptance speech. For today's video, we're gonna be talking a little bit about this executive order, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and why they're likely doing this. My name is Samantha Lux. I post new videos twice a week here on my channel. So if you guys are not yet subscribed and you would like to be, go ahead and do that right now. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. Go ahead. Are you done? Thank you very much. Make sure to follow me over on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Yes, I do have Twitter again. And yes, TikTok is back. Fun little side note, I play video games on my Twitch channel every single week. And finally, if you guys like the work that I do here in my channel and you would like to support that work, Patreon is the best way to do that. Thank you so much to my current patrons. You really make this work possible. But yeah, with no further ado, let's get right into today's video. So like I said, Trump has been talking about this executive order since the beginning of his campaign, to be honest. The Republican Party and Trump specifically have campaigned on anti-wokeness and specifically anti-transgender lunacy as one of its staple promises. He talked about it many, many times, including on January 20th, his inauguration day. Let's watch.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
The people standing, I can't. They're like, you did it, Joe. We'll get into the specifics of the executive order, but this statement right away, this coming out and saying the official position of the US government, whatever he just said, is a very clear signaling of what's to come for trans Americans. Basically an erasure from the US government and its faculties. It does say there are two genders, male and female, but even for binary trans individuals like myself who do identify as, a trans female, male and female are clearly defined as unchangeable, meaning my womanhood may no longer be recognized or protected by the law. So I just want to say, first of all, to all the trans people out there that are like, I love Trump. Trump is for me and my transition and I love him. You still love him? Let me be perfectly clear. This will not stop trans people from existing. This will not stop non-binary people from existing. Trans people have gone through this before and survived, and we will survive this again. While it may and likely will make our lives harder, they cannot erase the community of trans people who have been around for, since the beginning of time, since forever. They cannot erase the progress we've made with our neighbors and our colleagues. They can't erase the connections and the alliances that we've built. Those will remain and will help us through these challenging times. Okay, so now let's look into a little bit of this executive order. This Free Press article has come out. I don't have the official executive order just yet. However, in this Free Press article, they did have officials from the Trump campaign speak on the executive order, and they list what the order sets out to do. So first of all, it says, the executive order establishes government-wide the biological reality of two sexes and clearly defines male and female. It says all radical gender ideology guidance, communication, policy, and forms are removed. So I'm assuming this is like informative pages on the government websites about trans people, about what it means to be trans. It goes on to say agencies will cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men when enforcing laws that protect against sex discrimination. AKA, sex discrimination laws will no longer protect trans people. This would go against the Supreme Court ruling that discriminating based on gender identity or sexuality is sex discrimination. From the ACLU, it says, in a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of LGBTQ workers and found it is impossible to discriminate against a person for being homosexual or transgender without discriminating against that individual based on sex. And therefore, discrimination against LGBTQ workers was impermissible sex discrimination. This executive order is aiming to make that not a thing. You know what I mean? The next line says, woman means adult human female. This is just like the anti-woke rhetoric. I don't know what the importance of including it is here, besides to emphasize that no trans identities will be recognized under the law. Again, it doesn't matter how you define woman or man. Trans people are who they are, and we're going to continue living our lives the way we live our lives. You only hear things like this from people who are deeply invested in this anti-trans community, this anti-trans activism. They say, when is a woman? And then they go, a woman means adult human female. It's like their little gotcha moment. The final part of part 1 of this executive order says, the executive order directs the government identification like passports and personnel records will reflect biological reality and not self-assessed gender identity. Yeah, so we thought this would happen, right? That it would become difficult or impossible to change your gender marker on your IDs, like your driver's license or your passport, doing which has been possible since 2010, by the way. And all I really have to say to this is that, once again, trans people will still be trans. There is no good reason to do this other than to put trans people's safety in jeopardy. Not allowing a trans person to change their gender marker on their ID. I mean, not only is it just like disrespectful, like what the fuck? Secondly, it puts us in danger. It's a permanent outing every single time that we need to present our ID. Okay, so the second part of this executive order goes on to say, the executive order ends the practice of housing men in women's prisons and taxpayer-funded transition for male prisoners. I don't know. The transition in quotes is hilarious to me. Like, no, it's a okay, whatever. So once again, they're blowing this whole entire situation out of proportion and trying to make it seem like a giant issue when in reality it's just not. Oh my God, trans people are spending all of your taxpayer money by transitioning in prisons. First of all, trans people account for 1% of the population, meaning approximately 1% of the prison population. So the amount of taxpayer money going into this would be microscopic, especially when you compare it to the $200 million that was spent on anti-trans ads this campaign cycle. But written here is the goal of ending the practice of housing men in women's prisons. I just need to point out that this is incredibly rare. I've talked about this before on my channel, but trans women are very infrequently housed appropriately. Trans women are women and belong in women's spaces. They belong in women's prisons when they're prisoners. You know what I mean? Not just like all trans women belong in prison, but you know what I'm saying? I refuse to entertain the idea that just because we're trans, we are more dangerous than other prisoners and shouldn't be housed according to our gender identity. That's just transphobia. I'm not, no. Present me some evidence and then we'll talk, but like you have none. So this will not protect any woman from being harmed. The only outcome of this is that trans women will suffer. And finally, the last thing that this first executive order on trans people covers is that it ends the forced recitation of preferred pronouns and protects Americans' First Amendment and statutory rights to recognize the biological and binary nature of sex. This includes protection in the workplace and in federal funded entities like schools. Yeah, let those teachers harass their students. Continuously calling somebody something they don't like that they've asked you not to call them, it's harassment. You're advocating for harassment in the workplace. I mean, it's Donald Trump. Grab him by the you-know-what in the workplace. And also, trans people don't deny the biological reality of anything. I don't know what you bitches are talking about. There's no biological reality to pronouns, my guy. They're words we use to describe each other in social situations, right? Not biological situations, not medical situations. In social settings. This is simply an excuse to be an asshole to trans people. But are we surprised? Because you guys, that is what the entire executive order boils down to. None of this does anything but signal to Americans that trans people are the enemy, that they are something that we need to take care of and they are something that we need to combat and write executive orders about. There has never been any evidence that trans people pose a threat in literally like anything, but especially not in situations like this, like changing your freaking passport. How is me changing my passport to match my gender identity hurting anybody? Like we've been saying for months, maybe even years, the only reason they talk about trans people and pump hundreds of millions of dollars into ads against trans people is because it's easy to make us an enemy. And all of these people know the power of creating a good enemy when it comes to dividing and conquering. If you heard about this executive order and you think this is a good thing, I would urge you to reconsider whether or not this should really be a day one priority. Our eggs didn't get any cheaper. Isn't that what we were mad about? But yeah, you guys, that is it for today's video. I wanted to let you guys know what was going on with this executive order. If you guys like this video, not the content, this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Make sure to subscribe. Like I said, I post new videos twice a week here on my channel. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm gonna go. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.